So I'm actually going to read 3 excerpts from the book. I thought Truman's description of Western Kansas in the first paragraph of the book was really accurate and gives you an idea of how small the community of Holcomb was and how this incident was beyond recognition of what anybody thought would happen in this town. The story was truly hard to read in the sense that you don't feel sympathy for Perry or Dick for what they did. You immediately feel sympathy for the family and what happened to them. But then there's also this question of, is capital punishment appropriate in matters such as these? And for those that don't know the story, and I'm not running anything by telling you this, Dick Hickock and Perry Smith were the last men to be executed in Kansas. After that, capital punishment was banned as an option for first-degree murder offenses. So I'm just going to read these 3 excerpts. So the first one's about Holcomb, and then we'll get to the next 2, and I'll explain those a little bit more before I read them. The village of Holcomb stands on high wheat plains of western Kansas, a lonesome area that other Kansans call out there. Some 70 miles east of the Colorado border, the countryside, with its hard blue skies and desert-clear air, has an atmosphere that is rather more far west than Middle West. The local accent is barbed with a prairie twang, a ranch hand nasalness, and the men, many of them, wear narrow frontier trousers, Stetsons, and high-heeled boots with pointed toes. The land is flat, and the views are awesomely extensive. Horses, herds of cattle, a white cluster of grain elevators rising as gracefully as Greek temples are visible, long before the traveler reaches them. So in these last 2 excerpts, the first one that I'm going to read is right before Hickock is taken to the gallows. As is customary, the warden, having finished his recitation, asked the condemned man whether he had any last statement to make. Hickock nodded. "I just want to say I hold no hard feelings. You people are sending me to a better world than this ever was." Then, as if to emphasize the point, he shook hands with the 4 men mainly responsible for his capture and conviction, all of whom had requested permission to attend the executions. KBI agents Roy Church, Clarence Duntz, Harold Nye, and Dewey himself. "Nice to see you," Hickock said, with his most charming smile, as if he was greeting guests at his own funeral. And this last excerpt that I'm going to read is when Perry Smith is executed. Steps, noose, mask. But before the mask was adjusted, the prisoner spat his chewing gum into the chaplain's outstretched palm. Dewey shut his eyes. He kept them shut until he heard the thud snap that announces a broken neck. Like the majority of American law enforcement officials, Dewey is certain that capital punishment is a deterrent to violent crime. And he felt that if ever the penalty had been earned, the present instance was it. The preceding execution had not disturbed him. He had never had much use for Hickock, who seemed to him a small-town chiseler who got out of his depth empty and worthless. But Smith, though he was the true murderer, aroused another response. For Perry possessed a quality, the aura of an exiled animal, a creature walking wounded, that the detective could not disregard. He remembered his first meeting with Perry in the interrogation room at police headquarters in Las Vegas. The dwarfish man seated in the metal chair, his small booted feet not quite brushing the floor. And when Dewey now opened his eyes, that is what he saw. The same childish feet tilted, dangling.